You need saves, but you don't want to draft a closer too early. You don't want to overpay in an auction. Half of all closers lose their job anyways. That all sounds great, and it might be true. But how do you know you're going to be the first one to grab that backup closer before everybody else is on him? Let's do some of the dirty work up front. I'm going to go over some deep closer sleepers. These are guys who are not the closer going into the season. Maybe won't even get the job at all, but they are under the radar names, relief pitchers you should know because they could be in line for some saves. And I'm going to start with some of the more well-known names, some more obvious setup guys, players who already have a bunch of saves on their career resume, and it's going to get deeper. Trust me, we're going to go deep. But let's start with a pitcher who, at one time, was the most feared closer in all the land. That is Aroldis Chapman. Well, since he fell out of favor in New York, he's just kind of bounced around and been a setup guy, no longer the ninth inning fireman, but it looks like he still has something left in the tank. Last year, still posted decent ratios with a 3.09 ERA, 1.25 whip, but he struck out 41% of batters. That'll do. So obviously he's not what he once was, but he's still pretty good, and I'll tell you what, this is a sneaky pick because he went to Pittsburgh on a one-year deal, so he's really getting zero attention because we know he's a former closer and he's now going to a lesser team. But they also are a team that has a really good closer in place, assuming David Bednar is healthy. He's the guy. He could be one of the better closers of all the National League options out there, but he also could be on a different team after the trade deadline. Bednar is just on a one-year deal himself, so he's definitely going to be an enticing trade chip when those contenders come calling. And yeah, I'm assuming that the Pirates won't be one of those contenders. Just going out on a limb here. But why wouldn't they go ahead and try to get something in return for him? And so who steps up and saves 15 to 20 games over the second half of the season? It's Chapman. And then there's the fact that Bednar has had some injuries last season. Look, Chapman is a perfectly good option. They got him for just this purpose. And I will tell you, with all these pitchers I'm going to talk about, you're also looking at guys not just who are the setup guy, who are the backup to the current ninth inning option. You want a pitcher who can help you with strikeouts, ERA, and whip along the way, even if they're just picking up holds rather than saves. So that leads me to the next veteran option. That's Hector Neris, who is now a Cub. So first, let me talk about the current Cubs closer. That's Adbert Alzolay. Now, Alzolay is a pitcher I have liked for a while. I've been waiting for him to take over the closing job, and he got it. And I'm in on him this year. This actually is not in any way an indication that I think Alzolay's job will be in trouble, that he's not a good pitcher, anything like that. It's just Neris is the logical next man up. Well, Alzolay, of course, just like any pitcher, he's had some injuries, but also some inconsistency. It's not with control, and that's why I do like Alzolay, because he doesn't get himself into trouble, just not always as consistent as you would like. But you look also, the Cubs, a team that you think are going to be competitive this year. So last year, Alzolay had 22 saves, pretty good. That's it. He's got 23 for his career. That's his closing experience. It was last season. The year before that, he only pitched 13 innings because of injury. Neris has been a model of consistency. So last year, he wasn't a closer. He only picked up a couple of saves, but he's got 89 on his resume as a closer. He's been on multiple teams, pitched in the postseason, pitched well. He did pick up 31 holds last year. So it seems pretty obvious it's set in stone right now. Alzolay is the ninth inning guy. Neris is the eighth inning guy. If anything should happen to Alzolay, Neris just kind of seamlessly slides into that role. So he would seem to be like one of the best fallback options out there. All right, those seem obvious. These are pitchers who have already been the closer. Let's go with somebody who just came off his rookie season and only picked up a couple of saves. Maybe will be the primary guy next year, but there's no guarantee for James McArthur. Now, when you look at the Royals, they just signed veteran Will Smith, who has a ton of saves in his career. He's still pitching pretty effectively, but how much does he have left in the tank? Although his overall numbers were still pretty good last year, he has lost a tick on his velocity, and his K rate has dropped the last couple of seasons. Other thing is Smith, as of right now, is the only lefty in that bullpen. They might not have the luxury of waiting until the ninth inning to roll him out. But honestly, with as good as McArthur looked in limited time last year, why not give him the job? Look, if you look at the overall season stats for him, it's not going to blow you away, but context always matters. So first, let me point you to the fact that out of his 23 innings that he pitched last year, MacArthur only walked 2 batters. That's pretty amazing, and it's not like he didn't strike guys out either. He struck out a batter per inning. 23 strikeouts and 2 walks. That's impressive. But when you take a closer look as far as the ratios, consider the fact that in his very first Major League appearance, his very first inning of work, he gave up 7 runs in 1 inning. After that, he gave up a total of 5 earned runs over his next and his last 22 innings of the season. Basically, he had a big bump in the road in his very first appearance, and after that, it was just smooth sailing. Now, is he going to be able to do this over the course of a full season? That remains to be seen. I'll take a swing and see if it works, because I don't know that Will Smith is automatically going to be the closer. Now, this might be a committee, but I think MacArthur is the most talented pitcher. MacArthur's a pitcher I actually think is worth drafting, even if he's not handed the closer role. Now, last year, the Angels had a closer who made the All-Star game. Carlos Estevez saved 31 games, and supposedly, on paper, he's still the closer heading into this season. But the Halos just went and gave Robert Stevenson a 3-year deal for $33 million. I know baseball salaries are insane, but still, that seems like a lot to give for a guy who you're not going to use in high leverage situations. And given Stevenson's track record, you might be curious as to why he deserves this. But we have to look at the end of last year. Once Stevenson joined the Rays and they did whatever magic they do to turn a kind of fledgling veteran middle reliever into a guy who looks dominant. Whatever they did, it worked because Stevenson was dominant at the end of last year. Just in his time with Tampa, he posted a 1.78 Sierra, that's a skill independent ERA, and a 42.9% CSW. That's called strikes and whiffs put together. That's a really high number. And why this is notable too is because Estevez, the still entrenched supposedly closer, well, he was terrible in the second half of last year. As great as he was early on, over the second half of the season, he had a 6.59 ERA and a batting average against of 302. So it seems like even though he's going to have the job to start out, his leash might be pretty short. Stevenson has always had good stuff, just not very good command. But look, the Rays did what they did. They actually did tinker with his pitch mix a bit. They changed his breaking ball into more of like a cutter, and the results were there. Will it stick once he's in Los Angeles over the course of the season? Well, we're going to find out. But this is a guy who's been around, he's played for several teams, he's got good arm talent. If he's finally figured out the most effective way to use his pitch mix, look out. Now, if you've been a baseball fan for a decade or longer, you might know the saga of Shelby Miller. A first-round pick by the St. Louis Cardinals, Miller looked like he was going to be a budding ace, and he was traded to Atlanta for fan favorite Jason Hayward. And then he was traded to Arizona for number 1 overall pick Dansby Swanson, and a usable outfielder in Endar Inciarte, and a pitching prospect who didn't pan out in Aaron Blair. All of this for the Diamondbacks to get Miller, who was then a complete flop. That one year in Atlanta, even though he actually pitched pretty well, he managed to lose 17 games. And then the next year in Arizona, well, he only lost 12 games, but he posted a 6.15 ERA, a 1.67 whip, and again, just terrible. Fast forward several years, a lot of injuries, a lot of struggles, and playing for 8 different teams. And now Shelby Miller lands as a reliever on the Detroit Tigers. And yeah, I'm talking about him for fantasy baseball. Why? Well, it's simple. Last year, he actually turned into a really good middle reliever for the Dodgers. In 2023, he was able to post a 1.71 ERA and a .90 whip. Now, his command isn't perfect, but he's definitely harnessed it a bit. His strikeout rate is going back up. He's just looking like somebody who might be trustworthy in the later innings, and going to Detroit, he's definitely got a shot, an outside shot, but a shot at that, because really, who do the Tigers have that you can say you feel good about all season? Alex Lang, Jason Foley, these are guys who have had and lost the job at some point. So, look, this is definitely a dark horse here for saves, but Shelby Miller, late in his career, emerging as a closer would be kind of poetic. If that's not deep enough for you, how about a guy who's got all of 1 2/3 innings on his major league resume? So earlier this offseason, I'll talk about some sleepers I like. I mentioned Gregory Santos for the White Sox. Well, I'm out on him as far as a closing candidate because he's not with the White Sox anymore. He just got traded to Seattle, and one of the main pieces they got in exchange was Prelander Berroa. If you ever watch Berroa, he just kind of screams potential closer, diamond in the rough type. It just needs to be refined a little bit. The command is not there, but the fastball is, averages 97 on it, and he's got a really good slider. He can generate whiffs. He's got great arm talent. Just needs to kind of find the strike zone a little bit more often. He's in Chicago now. Definitely a path for him because I don't really know who I think is going to be the closer by the time the season ends or even mid-season at this point. Why not Berroa? They obviously identified him as one of the main pieces to get back for Santos. He's got the talent. He could have a path. So I'm definitely not drafting him anywhere unless it's a really deep league. But at this point, definitely someone to monitor. Picking up a bunch of saves late in the draft or on the waiver wire can definitely help you win your league. I also talk about some pitchers who can help you win your league from day one in this video right here.